Welcome to another show. There's a lot of things we're going to talk about. So coming up with a title, it's a waste of time. There's too many things to talk about. And I've been busy lately. I've been dealing with some pretty weird stuff. I'm not going to go into it. At least I'm not going to tonight. But I've been inspired to talk about a few things. There was a comment about how gang stalkers seem to be showing remorse. Okay, they seem to care somewhere under the surface. Okay, and I've wondered that before. I have wondered if these people were getting their arms twisted and so on and so forth. I don't know. When I see something like that, and I've seen that a lot. Okay. And I call it depending on what happens, I call one of them the weeping prophet. I think I've talked about that before. And it has to do with street theater and gaslighting and so on and so forth. And it involves someone who is either apologizing to you for what they're about to do, or for for something that's going to happen to you. Maybe you're going to get attacked. Maybe they're using that type of clairvoyant street theater with you or whatever. I've had that happen. Or they'll come up to you and they'll say, I'm sorry, or you'll run into individuals who are using a directed conversation and, the poor person, yeah, it's too bad. They have to be, targeted or whatever. And then you don't even know who they are, right? In extreme cases, someone may even walk up to you and just, I'm sorry, it has to be this way, it's too and it's a way to really freak out the targeted individual, okay? Because when someone is using theatrics to gaslight you, the easiest way to do it is to act like you're angry, right? Most people can do that. You don't have to be an actor. You don't have to have a couple Grammys or something, from the Academy Awards, actor school or something. You don't need anything to act like you're angry. That's easy. But when someone comes up and they're crying or whatever, and they just look emotionally distraught, here's $100 bill. Go get yourself something because it's going to be really bad. I'm sorry. It has to happen. I'm sorry. And, you're tempted to believe it. Okay? I've actually had that happen, literally. Okay? I've had people come to my house and do that. I'm sorry for what's about to happen to you. And then they just leave, And, of course, now you got to be anxious. Right, you got to wonder what's happening. You don't know what's coming. You know it's going to be bad, right? Because of what's happening. At least you're going to believe that, right? Because who's going to start weeping and crying and apologizing and all that if it's something you don't need to worry about, right? So it's a good way to freak you out. And for those of you who are believers, I would just say, I know it's difficult. I know it's hard to deal with all this stuff, and I get scared. I have troubles. But God's gonna bring you through. Okay. It's been happening to me for a long time, and I've gone down some pretty deep holes, man. I think I was coming out. I really thought it was over, and I'm still here. Okay. It doesn't mean I'm not gonna falter. It doesn't mean I'm not gonna get anxious. It doesn't mean that I'm not going to get worried or have a propensity to do this or that. But, hold on to that. But remember that these things are meant to confuse the targeted individual. They are meant to gaslight the targeted individual, and they're meant to freak you out. Right? When gang stalkers, here's the other thing, okay? When gang stalkers pull this off, you got to remember one thing. Okay, they're still going to do it. They always do it, regardless, right? It doesn't make any sense at all for someone to come up and apologize to you in advance, which is usually the case, or during the process, and they just do it anyway, right? I'm sorry, and just keep harassing you or whatever they're doing. right? I don't care, what kind of theatrics are going on. It's just it doesn't make any sense. It's not logical. It's not consistent. And, some of the stuff is just flat out demonic, you don't want to attack the puppets anyway. The thing you got to remember is you're being harassed. And targeted individuals who are dealing with higher forms of harassment, they're going to get it from strangers. They're going to get it from people in their family. They're going to get it from people in their social circle. They're going to get it at work. They're going to get it all over the place. If they leave, if they go on the run, they're going to, they're going to go to the hotel. They're going to get it there. They're going to get it at the gas station. They're going to get it wherever. And it's really freaky, man. It's enough to drive anybody into a temporary psychosis, right? Or, you're having panic attacks, you're having anxiety, you're having insomnia, you don't know what's going on, your life is crumbling around you, everything is just, Twilight Zone. And then you get these people to come up and they really let you have it. And of course, just like anything else that the targeted individual goes through, you're going to be sensitized. You're going to be conditioned to these things, right? The first time it happens, you're going to think, what's wrong with this person, right? That's what I thought. I was like, man, I didn't say anything. I was like, boy, you really need to, get some better medication or something, man. I don't know what your deal is, man. You've been... maybe you can't handle your booze you've been drinking. I didn't know what the hell. But then what happens? You get attacked, right? Something horrible happens to you, or you get some type of scenario or whatever, and then you're like, oh wow, oh my gosh, yeah. And so next time it happens, then what? Well, now you're going to be worried about it. It's like all the things that targeted individuals deal with. You're conditioned, right? You weren't paranoid before this stuff started to happen to you. You never used to worry about these things. You weren't looking for, people in white vans or whatever the hell they've conditioned you with, or keywords that you're hearing in directed conversations. You flip your head around, hey, wait a minute, what's, you weren't listening to that stuff. You didn't care. You weren't paying attention. You didn't notice these things. You weren't sitting up at night wondering what's going to happen to you at work, right? I wonder if I'm going to get harassed. I wonder if something bad is going to happen. I wonder if somebody's going to tamper with my food or break into my apartment or something. Oh gosh, what am I going to? You weren't anticipating any of these things before. You were conditioned. You were primed up for this stuff, man. And it happens over time, and it's the same way with that type of gaslighting. Okay. Are these people sorry for what they're doing? Well, I doubt it. They're still doing it. Right? If somebody comes up and does something like that, you're not going to do it. It's not like a primal urge or something, It's not like they're starving and they have to steal an apple from the grocery store because they're worried they're going to die or they just can't take the hunger anymore. That'd be forgivable. Right? Something like that. Yeah, I believe that. This isn't like that. Right? It's not connected to any type of sexual thing that, people have a drive for or hunger or anything like that. These people don't need to be bothering you. They don't need to be up in your business. They don't need to make you part of their day at all. But they are going out of their way, and don't forget that, they are going out of their way to do these things. Now, there's other situations that arise where there are people who are literally being manipulated in a way where I don't even know if they realize what's happening to them. Okay, but that's a little more rare, but that does happen. Okay, I've seen that before. And, people do get ruled over by spiritual entities and so forth. A lot of you might disagree with that, but I know it's true. Okay? And I've talked about this before. I don't care how your gangstalking is manifesting. I don't care if it's a secret society or some type of government thing. It's got spiritual roots. I don't care if you're somebody who's just experiencing electronic harassment. Whoever's doing it has got to be influenced. And a lot of you guys know what I'm talking about. You've seen it. You may have not recognized what's going on. You may have laid it all on the Freemasons or some kind of witch cult or witchcraft, voodoo cult or something, or a bunch of people who were into, some type of hidden wisdom or secret knowledge, like the Rosicrucians or whatever. But it's spiritual. All that stuff is connected, and I've talked about that before. All the secret societies that you're going to run into out there have roots that go all the way back to Egypt. You got the all-seeing eye, you got the hidden wisdom, the secret knowledge, the Rosicrucians, Freemasons, the Illuminati, the Scottish Rite. It's all there, all of it. Alchemy, all that stuff, it all connects. Okay? And, there is witchcraft involved. I'm not saying that there isn't. I'm just saying you got to view it in the right way, right? And you got to realize that the individuals who are involved are being deceived, and they are being manipulated. They do believe this stuff, and they're going to correlate activity and events around these people, which you got to get out of your life, by the way. Okay, you do. If someone is obviously harassing you or a negative influence on your life, you got to get them out of your life. Okay? But they will use these, so they'll correlate events, and they will use stimuli, maybe a spiritual attack or something, or it might be technological, whatever. And then you're going to come to the conclusion, right? You're going to have that syllogistic, deductive reasoning, and you're going to come to the conclusions they want. But you're going after the puppets. You never want to go after the puppets, but you do have to get away from them. Okay. There's a lot of stuff out there that has to do with like spiritual vampires, the empath, right? They're always negative. They're always sucking the life out of you. They'll stroke your ego enough, or not even that necessarily. They'll help you or whatever, or they'll get you into a place where you believe you're helping them. But they're toxic, right? They just suck the life out of you. All you have to be is within earshot of someone who's using a directed conversation on you. It's the same way with anyone. Okay, if you've got negative people in your life, they're always accusing you, or they're doing this or that, or minimizing the stuff that you go through. Of course, you got to listen to what they're going through, right? Which is fine. But then when you have a problem, all of a sudden it's all your fault now. You're doing it yourself. And it's gaslighting. And that brings me to the second topic, and that's the vulnerability of targeted individuals. Okay? I've talked about the isolation that targets go through. When I started experiencing gangstalking, I didn't have YouTube. Okay? I didn't have anyone that I could relate with. For all I knew, I was the only one on the planet that was dealing with this stuff. I had heard about different things where maybe the government was profiling individuals and color coding and stuff like that. And, there was a few things I knew about demonic attack and so on and so forth. And I knew some stuff about witchcraft, but I didn't know anything. And most of that stuff was used against me, right? My ignorance and all that stuff. But I didn't have any support. Targeted individuals are very vulnerable, okay? And you might even be dealing with that stuff in your family. What do? You can't get away, right? And they're probably all sitting around talking about how they're going to put you away. Oh, you need some help. You need to, you got to see the doctor, and you're going nuts, and you don't even know what to do, right? How do you get away from something like that? They're your family, and here's the best part. You're probably in a needy position. Okay? What happens to someone when they start experiencing stalking and harassment on a heavy level? Well, they get frazzled, right? They get needy. They might be financially needy. You might be experiencing workplace harassment. You might even be afraid to leave the house. And what happens? Well, your finances, they're gone, right? We're going to talk about that a little bit later. You don't have any, social support. You have anybody who can give you affirmation, which is another reason why I make these videos. And you start to compromise, right? I mean, you'll literally at the end of this whole thing, or in the middle of the isolation that targeted individuals deal with, almost let yourself be abused just so you can have someone you can talk to, right? It's like being thrown in a prison, right? You don't want to be around these people. You're forced to fit in. You're forced to be a chameleon and learn to survive in a hostile environment, period. And that's another thing that happens to targets, is that they experience extreme stress. They are subjected to trauma, and to the point where sometimes they split. Okay, sometimes targeted individuals will disassociate. Sometimes they'll just split. I've experienced that. Right? You might even be dealing with covert drugging. They might even include LSD, right? Just like MK Ultra, when you experience the trauma, the stress, the isolation, the sleep deprivation, the horror and fear of all these things, and then you got to try and fit in and pretend like everything's normal, man, you start to crack. But not in a way where, you know, you're Fruit Loops, man. It's just you start to literally split in your personality. Okay, I've experienced that. I'm not even going to go into that. It can happen. And it's all symptomatic of this hostile environment that you have to survive in. You got to pretend like everything's normal. Okay? But like I said, now you're forced into a situation where you're needy. And a lot of times, and I've talked about this in videos before, you'll be surrounded by these characters. Okay? These people will literally infiltrate into your life. And you will be surrounded by them, and they will assault you at whenever they want, because they know that you're needy. They know you're vulnerable, and there you are. You're experiencing all these things, and here comes whoever pick the person that has infiltrated your circle, either now or in the past. And what happens? You're within earshot. And what do? They start tearing you to pieces, right? They start worming their way into your mind, into your emotional life, and manipulating you and jerking your chain. And they are literally helping the kingdom of darkness at that point. You need to get them out of your life, right? Sometimes it's not easy to do. Sometimes you have to be careful how you do that, because remember, you're surrounded. And you can get attacked in ways. So you don't like me. So now you're going to judge me. So I'm the one that, you're crazy. And then you get more gaslighting and you get more accusations, and you're vulnerable, man. And it becomes a very dangerous scenario, because, everything is accumulating. Targeted individuals are in a system, or a situation rather, that is accumulative. It has reciprocity. It's one building block upon another, and it accumulates over time, right? And it just tears you apart. It just boxes you in every way that you can imagine, right? Emotionally, physically, financially, everything. And they'll try to rule over you, okay? And they'll get you in that spot. Okay, which comes to the next subject, and I talked about this in the last video. Is what are you going to talk about this? Are you going to tell people you're a targeted individual? And some people, they get hostile when I bring this up. You know what? I talked about it in the last video. It just doesn't work out a lot of times. Okay, you're in a very vulnerable position. You're getting attacked from multiple angles, multiple geographical locations, in all kinds of different ways. And now you got to explain it, right? And then what are you going to do? You're going to get more accusations, aren't you? Right? It would be easier, and this is kind of where I'm going with this, for you just to say you had some kind of mental condition. And some are better than others. Okay, if you are trying to avoid further persecution and obfuscation of illegal activity, the last thing you want is a diagnosis of schizophrenia or factitious disorder or something like that, or delusions or some kind of psychosis or something, right? It's okay to be bipolar. Okay, they're gonna, you could say something like that, or you could say, I'm having anxiety. I got an anxiety disorder, man. I'm sorry, Because if you try to explain all these things that are happening, if you're a targeted individual who's experiencing higher forms of harassment, Is that really something people are going to understand? No. No, it's not. You have to admit you wouldn't have believed it either. I wouldn't have. If somebody would have come up and said something like this, I would have thought they were nuts. There's no way that could happen to somebody. For what? Why? What would all these people be doing this for? What, are you special? Right? It fits right into that delusion of grandeur. It fits right into that persecutory delusion of the criteria of psychiatry. What are you going to say? Because the fact of the matter is, targeted individuals are pushed and attacked in so many different areas, it's inevitable they're going to become paranoid and dysfunctional, at least for a little while, if nothing else. And what do? Oh, I'll just tell you about what's happening. All these people are doing all this stuff. Oh, really? 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 So why? And then you got to explain that. It's just one question after another. Is all it is. And you start looking more insane every question. Period. It'd almost be easier to say, oh, I think maybe I'm having, symptoms of anxiety or bipolar, or I've got insomnia, it's affecting me. Whatever. You got to do what you got to do, period. And that's dealing with these people. Because they will try to box you in, right? And you can see them coming. You can see all this stuff happening. It's usually after the targeted individual's been attacked for a little while. It doesn't happen at first. There will be people that will infiltrate your life sometimes even before you start to experience the harassment. It just depends. But I think every targeted individual deals with, at least probably months after it starts to happen, at the very least, where they're going to have people, whoa, what's going on in your life? You okay? Everything all right? I experienced that, and I didn't even show any symptoms. And there was a couple individuals that kept coming up and asking me if anything was wrong. I wasn't acting any different. I had completely kept my mouth shut about everything because I knew at that point something was going on, and the only way to sort out who was who and to know who I could trust was to let them tell on themselves, right? Because there was no reason for anybody to say anything to me. And then all of a sudden a couple of these people came up, oh, if you were having problems, you'd tell me, wouldn't you? If there was something weird going on, you can always talk to me. Oh, okay, yeah, okay. And it's just persistent, right? With no signs or symptoms. And then that's when the whole thing starts. And then you're going to start experiencing that gaslighting because, of course, they're going to gain your trust, though, too. And there's other, fake targeted individuals out there that'll do that. And you start telling them stuff, and then they'll turn on you. They'll get you to believe that they are experiencing harassment or things that you're experiencing or that you're helping them or they want to help you. And then they'll turn on you, right? They'll use that information that they get from you and they'll try to gaslight you. They'll start minimizing. They will literally attack you, right? Because you're vulnerable, right? You don't have anybody that you can relate with. They know just by default that you're a targeted individual, and targeted individuals always share that one thing in common, that they are isolated. Period. Every targeted individual out there has experienced extreme isolation. And you might even be around people. You may have a lot of people that you talk to. You may have people that you work with, you get along with, whatever. You may have people in your family that do genuinely care about you, but there's no one that is experiencing what you're experiencing. You have no one to sit back with and say, hey, man, let's talk about some of this stuff. Oh, yeah, well, I've had that happen. No one. And they know it. And they're going to take advantage of that. And then there's the financial vulnerability. You'd be willing to take abuse as long as you don't get thrown out on the street, as long as you don't, starve, you have something to eat, a place to sleep, right? Because it's very common for targeted individuals to become very, very dysfunctional, maybe even for years after they start to experience this stuff, and you can see why. Right? I mentioned that a lot of them don't even want to leave the house. You can't blame them. Right? Especially if you experience that heavy workplace harassment, the last thing you want to do is deal with that again. Okay? I'm not saying you should quit. I'm just saying I understand it. Because the targeted individual will get to the point where they are very vulnerable in their emotions. This stuff has accumulated to the point where they just can't take anymore. They can't. They do not have the energy to deal with it anymore. They have taken their last, and they need to re-up, man. They need to strengthen themselves. They need a time to get homeostasis back. But the nature of this type of harassment is won't let you do it. They won't let you relax. They will not let up. It's everywhere. It's everything. It involves everything from your food to the air you're breathing, to where you work, to where you go, your social circle. And some targeted individuals are dealing with even more than that, to the point where they're getting hit with energy weapons, they're getting V2K, they're getting demonic attacks, and sometimes you can't even differentiate those things. Of course, the answer is the same for me. You just cry out to God. You cry out to Christ. He's not complicit in this gang stalking, right? He's not ordaining these things. The world is a place of reality, okay? And everybody's making choices. They're making choices. If he stopped everything, it wouldn't be real. Okay? He's able to work all these things out. He may stop it, but at the very least, he's going to help you get through these things. And whether you're listening to this when I first put this video out or in the future, I would just pray in the name of Christ that these things that are coming against you back off. Okay? That you find relief. These people aren't going to get away with this stuff. There is witchcraft involved in gang stalking. There are things that are demonic. Okay, people are being influenced. There's all kinds of things, and sometimes it doesn't even require people. You're just sitting there in the middle of the night. You may start having nightmares. You might wake up. You might be having panic attacks. You might feel suicidal. That stuff is evil. You need to cry out to God. And getting back to these psychic vampire empaths, these witches, these warlocks, these people who are involved in this stuff, it's not going to work out for them. Okay, I've seen what happens. I know, what's out there doing these things. And I also know something else, and that's that the spiritual forces involved in this stuff don't care about them. They do not care about them at all. And they are going to devour them eventually. And getting back to these people feeling remorse, no, I'm not buying it at all. I'm not believing any of that. And I don't care if they cry alligator tears. It's not working. Okay? God has gave us some very simple rules to follow. Treat other people the way you want to be treated. That's pretty simple, isn't it? It's not like God is asking us to do a lot, right? Try to turn away from evil, treat each other the way you want to be treated, love each other, right? Is that asking too much? Evidently it must be, okay? And I'm not saying I do that perfectly all the time, and I'm not saying that God even requires this or expects this, but he expects you to try. Right? He expects you to be logical and consistent, right? No, I'm not buying it. I don't think these people have any remorse, and they certainly, in my opinion, don't have any excuse for what they're doing either. And it's just a way to gaslight and confuse you. Well, hopefully this video has helped you out. Be good to yourselves. Be safe.